What if the way we understand reality, through modern physics, actually holds clues to things we've always dismissed? Things like the supernatural or paranormal.
It's a fascinating question, isn't it?
Yeah. Today, we're going to dive deep into this evolving field, this kind of intersection point, now called psychotronics.
Right, and we're pulling from a really wide range of sources: theoretical physics, psychology, engineering, even ancient texts.
Our mission today is really to unpack all this. We'll look at some surprising facts, some deep insights that might challenge how you think about things.
Exactly. We want to explore how science itself is kind of blurring these lines between what we know and what's still mysterious.
And how researchers are trying to bring real scientific rigor to phenomena that used to be just, myth.
And for you, our listener, understanding this shift, it's important. It could change how we see science, maybe even how we tackle big global problems.
Okay, so let's unpack this term, psychotronics. You mentioned it's like a massive renovation of what used to be called parapsychology. How did that shift happen?
Well, it's quite an evolution. The older generation, the parapsychologists, they mostly thought about these things in philosophical or psychological terms.
Their main goal was?
Their main goal was basically just to prove these phenomena existed. Telepathy, PK. They saw them as complex psychic things, hard to pin down, hard to repeat in the lab.
So just focusing on proving it was real, that must have limited things a bit, right? How could the field really grow?
It definitely did limit things. I mean, proving existence is step one, sure. But the younger researchers realized, look, that's not enough. We need to understand how it works.
Right.
They wanted to model these things, intensify them, formulate theories, even calculate them. That brought in a more technical, physical approach alongside the psychological one.
A real merging of ideas.
Exactly. And this new way of thinking saw psychotronics not as some fringe thing, but as a serious interdisciplinary science.
And what did that allow them to do? What changed?
It opened the door for much more rigor. Suddenly the focus was on experiments you could repeat, developing actual instruments to measure things, wanting to publish in proper journals.
So bringing different fields together.
Yeah, it's crucial. You've got physics, communication tech, math, cybernetics, psychology, even space biology, all feeding into it. It's a real convergence.
So it pushes past this idea of parascience, like it's separate from normal science. One source even suggests maybe there are no parasciences.
That's a really key point from Charles Muses. He argued that terms like parapsychology or paraphysics are kind of misleading.
How so?
He suggested that mind phenomena, consciousness, noetics, isn't separate. It's actually being connected to all sciences.
So it's an integration.
Precisely. This integration of consciousness into science, it's leading towards a whole new Weltanschauung, a new way of seeing the world.
This makes me think of historical examples. Science has had to eat humble pie before, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Things once called occult fancies became mainstream. Like Kepler saying the moon affects tides. Galileo laughed, but Newton made it science.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Or think about those really embarrassing reversals. Like in 1878, a British scientific commission told Parliament that electric lighting was, quote, unworthy of the attention of practical or scientific men.
Wow. Seriously?
Seriously. They said it was impossible for households and would flaunt the laws of the universe. Just imagine saying that now.
History really does keep science honest, or tries to. And Mesmer, too, right? His animal magnetism was seen as quackery.
Until hypnosis became a recognized therapy, especially after World War I. It shows we need to keep an open mind about what seems strange today.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and dive into the physics behind some of this. The sheer weirdness at the quantum level. Arthur Koestler called it the perversity to physics.
He did. And think about it. We went from just 3 elementary particles in the 1930s to, around 100 now?
And some are so weird they literally call their property strangeness.
Exactly. It's a surreal world down there. The deeper we look, the more reality seems, less solid, less fixed than we think.
Like an illusion, almost.
In a way, yeah. Concepts like strangeness, particles popping in and out of existence, it challenges everything. And importantly, it suggests the rules might be more flexible than we thought, maybe making room for psychotronics.
And we can actually see some of this strangeness, right? Those bubble chamber photos?
Yes. Capturing the invisible tracks of these tiny, tiny particles zipping around, crashing, exploding. You're literally watching mass turn into energy and back again.
It's incredible. A triumph of science, even if we don't fully get what's happening down there.
Physicists themselves admit these ghosts are hard to grasp. But maybe the most ghost-like of all is the neutrino.
Ah, the neutrino. Pauli predicted it in 1930, but they didn't find it until, what, 1956?
That's right, 26 years later.
Why so long? What makes it so elusive?
Well, basically, it has almost none of the properties we think of as physical. It has no mass, or vanishingly small mass, we now think, no electric charge, no magnetic field. Gravity barely touches it.
So it just passes through everything.
Pretty much. A neutrino can fly straight through the entire Earth like it's not even there.
Yeah.
Right now, as you're listening, billions of them from the sun are streaming through your head, through your brain.
That's just mind-bending. It really messes with your sense of solid reality. It reminds me of that John Updike poem, Cosmic Gall.
Oh, yes. That's a great one.
Neutrinos, they are very small. They have no charge and have no mass and do not interact at all. It goes on about how they just pass through everything, ignoring walls, steal, infiltrate you and me like tall and painless guillotines. They fall down through our heads into the grass. It really captures that ghostly feeling.
It does. Koestler noted to an unprejudiced mind, they do seem a bit like ghosts. And because they're so ethereal, people started wondering, could they be a link between matter and mind?
Like V.A. Fursoff's idea.
Exactly. He suggested mind was maybe a universal thing and proposed Minden's hypothetical mind stuff particles, sort of like neutrinos.
Wow. And then you have Paul Dirac's ideas, even wilder stuff, like negative mass electrons.
Oh, yeah. Dirac's theory was way out there initially. The idea of antimatter, these holes that behave like electrons with positive charge.
Positrons.
Positrons, right. It sounded crazy, but then Carl Anderson actually discovered them just a year later.
And Niels Bohr even made a joke theory based on it, how to catch elephants.
He did. It shows how strange these ideas seemed. But then Richard Feynman took it even further.
What did Feynman propose?
He suggested that a positron is just an electron moving backward in time.
Backward in time.
Yep. Koestler called it the most serious blow the concept of time has ever received in physics.
Okay, my head is spinning a little. Backward time. How does that connect back to consciousness or psi phenomena?
Well, building on these weird physics ideas, a Cambridge mathematician, Adrian Dobbs, came up with a hypothesis involving two time dimensions.
Two time dimensions?
Yeah. The idea is this second time dimension allows for something like precasts of future events, probabilistic glimpses of what might happen.
And how would those glimpses travel?
Through hypothetical particles he called seatrons. These would have imaginary mass, allowing them to travel faster than light, and theoretically interact directly with the brain, carrying information about possible futures.
Imaginary mass, faster than light.
Seatrons. Okay, so is this a possible explanation for something like psychokinesis, PK, like influencing dice rolls with your mind?
PK is still really tough to explain with current physics. It seems to operate differently from the known macroscopic laws, maybe even quantum ones.
So maybe not seatrons then.
It's hard to say. PK might require an even more radical shift in thinking, maybe involving different dimensions entirely. It's where concepts like synchronicity, from Wolfgang Pauli and Carl Jung, come in.
Right, meaningful coincidences that don't seem to have a direct cause and effect link.
Exactly. Suggesting maybe there's a deeper, non-causal order connecting things. Physics just keeps getting weirder, forcing us to rethink everything. Is there any attempt to sort of unify these ideas? I saw a mention of a biogravitational field.
That's a pretty bold idea from Alexander Dubrov. He proposed this special field connected to living things, arising from changes in proteins.
Biogravitation.
Yeah. The idea is it could potentially explain everything from telekinesis to clairvoyance by allowing for, like, distortions of space or interaction with other dimensions.
And the hope is to make psychotronics more scientific.
Right, to move it away from pure mysticism, maybe even develop instruments, like piezocrystal sensors, to measure this field. It's an attempt at a physical grounding.
Okay, so moving from the super theoretical physics to actual human experiments,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the mind itself. The Maimonides dream laboratory work sounds fascinating. Telepathy and precognition in dreams.
Well, the Maimonides lab did some really pioneering stuff back then, starting around '64 with EEG monitoring. They ran lots of studies looking at paranormal effects during altered states.
Like telepathy while dreaming. Can you give an example?
Sure. In one case, the person sending the thought focused on Chagall's Green Violinist. The dreamer reported dreams involving music.
Wow.
Another time, the target was Gauguin's Still Life with 3 puppies. The dreamer dreamt about a couple of dogs making a noise.
So what were the main takeaways from these dream telepathy studies?
Well, first, that telepathy could be demonstrated under lab conditions. Second, they found male subjects often seem to be better receivers, interestingly.
Ah. Any idea why?
Not clearly explained, but it was a consistent finding then. Also, targets with strong emotional content, related themes, aggressive images seem to produce stronger results. And things like the subject's belief, their expectation, their intention, what they call orientation, expectancy, and volition, seemed really important.
And what about precognition, dreaming the future?
They tested that too. One subject, Malcolm Besson, had statistically significant results dreaming about experiences he'd have the next day.
Like what?
Well, in one instance, the researchers randomly selected the word teaspoon for his experience the next morning. And sure enough, the next day, they literally gave him soup to eat with a teaspoon. And he dreamed about something related to that.
That's pretty specific, so it really seems like these abilities, if they exist, are tied to certain states of mind.
That's what the Maimonides' work strongly suggested, yeah. Altered states, especially maybe those connected to alpha brainwaves, seem to be more conducive to ESP, like the mind needs to be in a particular receptive state.
Okay, so beyond dreams, there's also research on people like yogis who seem to have incredible control over their own bodies, right?
Absolutely. Research on yogis shows some amazing abilities. Voluntary control over things we normally think are automatic, like heart rate or breathing.
Like stopping their heart.
Some could apparently stop it for about 5 seconds, yeah. Or do these extreme breathing exercises. The yoga explanation involves prana.
Prana, that's like a life force energy.
Sort of, yeah. A non-physical energy they believe is absorbed from the universe through chakras.
Chakras, energy centers in the body.
Right. In a subtle body, they say, which then control the physical organs and can emit this psi energy.
And researchers actually tried to test this scientifically, like ruling out normal physical effects.
They did. There were experiments where someone trying to influence another person's pulse and breathing rate, even when they were in separate, shielded rooms.
Shielded rooms. So no sound, no visual cues, no electromagnetic signals getting through?
Supposedly, yes. Physical shielding. And they still observed significant changes in the receiver's physiology, suggesting the influence wasn't physical in the usual sense.
And they even tried to measure this chakra energy.
Amazingly, yes. Someone developed an apparatus for measuring vital energy. It recorded changes in electrical potential and frequency around these supposed chakra points when they were awakened. Reportedly, the first objective measurements of that kind.
Wow, objective measurements of chakra energy, that's quite something. It's like we might have hidden senses or ways of interacting with the world, which brings us to eyeless sight.
Right? Paroptical perception or dermal optic sensitivity.
Yeah.
The ability to perceive colors, maybe even read, without using your eyes.
How does that even work? How do they train people?
The training involves learning to associate colors with touch and temperature sensations. Like red might start to feel sticky or coarse, while blue feels smooth and cool.
So it's translating color into tactile feelings.
Seems like it. Some researchers thought maybe infrared radiation, heat differences played a role. Interestingly, people who went blind later in life seemed better at it.
Why?
The idea was maybe they could sort of reanimate their old visual memories through these new tactile inputs.
Fascinating. So the body itself can be a sensor in surprising ways. And this links to research on radio waves too, doesn't it? How our skin interacts with them.
It does. And Drija Puharish did work on this. He developed an instrument, the TD100, that applies radio waves to the skin. And they found something really unexpected. If you stroke the skin with these energized plates, the keratin proteins in the skin could act like tiny radio detectors. People could actually hear speech modulated onto the radio waves, applied just to their arm or head.
Hear radio through their skin. Seriously?
Apparently so. It's quite startling.
Were there any practical uses for this?
They highlighted potential medical benefits. Things like helping with certain types of deafness, maybe the only way for some, treating Meniere syndrome, maybe speeding up bone healing, even improving memory. It points to this deep link between subtle energies and our biology.
And this connects somehow to Krellian photography, that aura photography.
Right. Krellian photography shows this corona discharge effect, an electrical glow around objects, especially living things.
Like an energy field.
That's the interpretation some give it. And the really wild experiments involved Uri Geller.
The guy who bends spoons.
That's him. In these experiments, while his body was being energized by radio waves using Puharich's methods, they tested his telepathy. Not only could he apparently receive numbers telepathically from someone in another room, but they claimed he could make images of those numbers appear under his fingerprint on photographic film placed nearby.
Under his fingerprint?
Yeah.
Wow. That's extraordinary if true. It really makes you wonder what humans are capable of. So thinking about this bigger picture, connecting mind, body, energy, and some researchers are even going back to ancient texts with, like, an engineer's eye, really expanding that Weltanschauung we mentioned, like the Ezekiel story.
Well, the Ezekiel analysis by Joseph Blumrich is amazing. He was a NASA engineer, worked on things like the Saturn V rocket.
The serious aerospace guy?
Absolutely. And he initially wanted to disprove Erich von Daniken's claims that Ezekiel saw spaceships.
But
But his own detailed engineering analysis led him to conclude that, yeah, parts of von Daniken's idea actually held up from a structural and technical standpoint.
so those strange descriptions in Ezekiel, their legs were straight, the soles of their feet were round, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. What did Blumrich make of that?
He interpreted that specific part as describing the landing gear of some kind of flying vehicle. He actually did a full reconstruction based on the text.
A reconstruction, what did it look like?
It had a main body, kind of cone-shaped, with 4 helicopter-like units for lift and control, and a command capsule on top. He concluded it was technically feasible, using technology maybe not that far beyond what we had even then, except for needing a very advanced nuclear reactor for power.
Wow. And didn't he invent something based on Ezekiel, too?
He did. Ezekiel describes wheels within wheels that could go in any direction without turning. Blumrich was so intrigued, he designed and actually patented an omnidirectional wheel based on that description.
No way.
Yes. He even noted it could be really useful for things like wheelchairs. His point was this engineering perspective made sense of passages that otherwise seemed completely bizarre or meaningless. It suggested Ezekiel wasn't just having a mystical vision, but maybe encountering an actual craft, an expeditionary force with ranks and procedures.
So what's the takeaway from this kind of analysis for how we view ancient stories or potential encounters?
Blumrich's conclusion was powerful. He said, instead of assuming, well, we don't know how they could get here, so they couldn't have been here, maybe we should start thinking, the evidence suggests they were here, so they must have found a way. He called for scientists from different fields to work together, open-mindedly.
That's a great point about open-mindedness combined with rigor. Which brings us back to Krellian photography. While some see a mystical aura, there's also a more conventional scientific take, right?
Yes, exactly. A physicist, Rudolf Guzik, looked at it and said, hold on, this aura is basically a well-understood electrical phenomenon, a high-frequency corona discharge, like St. Elmo's fire you see on ships' masts sometimes.
So not a life force, but electricity interacting with the object.
Pretty much. Guzik argued that things like the moisture on your skin, the air pressure, how conductive the surface is, even the type of film used, all these physical factors create the patterns and colors, not some mysterious psionic equilibrium.
So his point is about careful experiments.
Absolutely. You need really tight controls to separate the known physics from any potential unknown effects. He warned that just jumping to mystical conclusions and sensationalism can actually hurt the serious scientific study of these things. We need rigor.
That emphasis on rigor and broader thinking seems crucial, especially when we face huge global challenges. Things that maybe our standard models aren't fully equipped to handle, like climate change.
That's a really important connection. There was an urgent statement from the International Federation of Institutes for Advanced Study, IFISS, about climate change.
What were they saying?
They presented evidence back then suggesting we were entering a new norm for climate. Not necessarily just warming, but possibly steady cooling. They noted about a 0.3 degrees Celsius drop in average surface temperature since the 1940s, but also, crucially, increased variability.
More extremes.
Exactly. More extremes of hot and cold, wet and dry. And they pointed to examples already happening, then the terrible droughts in the Sahel in Africa, droughts in India, the weird weather patterns hitting the Soviet Union, Africa, Australia, Latin America.
We've definitely seen increasing weather extremes since then. What worried them most?
The lack of global preparedness. Grain reserves were already dangerously low, less than a month's supply. Combine that with wastefulness in rich countries and growing populations. They saw the near certainty of major crop failures within a decade.
Which could lead to
Mass starvation, widespread anarchy, violence, a truly catastrophic scenario.
So what was the call to action? If the climate is becoming more unpredictable, what do we do?
The call was urgent. Boost food production, build up reserves, cut wasteful consumption, reform land ownership. But also, critically, they stressed the ethical dilemmas. How do you distribute food when there isn't enough?
That's a heavy question.
And they insisted that any research into controlling or changing the weather must be dedicated to peaceful purposes, never used as a weapon. It demanded a really comprehensive, ethical, multi-layered approach.
That need for a comprehensive, integrated view really ties back into our main theme, doesn't it? Breaking down barriers between fields. Lincoln Rothschild talked about this with art and science.
He did. He challenged that common idea that art and science are opposites. He called it a momentarily distorted cultural emphasis.
So what did he advocate for instead?
A convergence. Artists and scientists working towards a common goal, improving human cooperation, managing our environment better. He felt we needed a renewed respect for craftsmanship in both fields, and crucially, to bring ethics and morality back into the heart of science.
It's about seeing the whole picture, isn't it? Whether it's art, science, ethics, or understanding these subtle phenomena. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the tiniest ghost-like particles in physics
To the potential of the human mind in dreams and altered states.
relooking at ancient stories through an engineer's eyes.
And connecting it all to these huge, complex, global issues like climate, and even how we think about art and science together.
It feels like the common thread is this need for a broader perspective, maybe a more integrated, ethical approach, like psychotronics itself tries to be.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. What if the key to future understanding, maybe even solving our biggest problems, isn't necessarily about finding completely new, exotic things out there?
What if it's about finally taking seriously and studying rigorously the things we've dismissed for so long? The unthinkable propositions, the unexplained observations.
Could the next great scientific revolution be less about discovery and more about integration, about having the courage to connect what we already know, but from all these different angles?
Expanding our scientific worldview to finally make space for it all, definitely something to think about.